Got it.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. We are the major faculty in the history department who work with our pre-credential students. I'm Dr. Lorimer. I work at the San Bernardino campus as an assistant professor. And Dr. KARP.
Yeah, everybody, I'm joining from a classroom today. So I'm Michael KARP, and I'm head up the pre-credential stuff at the Palm Desert campus is where my primary appointment's at.
So today we're going to talk to you about the ins and outs of the pre-credential history program, particularly as it relates to the CSET waiver, which many of you may have heard about, or you may kind of have a vague idea what it means. So if you're interested in being a history social science teacher, either in a junior high or high school level, then this is the meeting that you want to be in to learn more about this. So the California Teacher Credentialing Commission provides for different programs across content areas to prepare students with the content area that they need focus in to teach the information for the grade levels that they'll be teaching. So for history, it's actually a social science preparation program because you can teach history, but you can also teach a range of other classes in the social sciences. So if you're teaching at some junior highs, you may be teaching just broad social studies classes. At the high school level or at other junior highs, you may be teaching specific world history or US history classes. You can also teach economics classes, geography, political science. There is a new ethnic studies graduation requirement that's coming into California for students graduating in 2029 and 2030. So for those of you who are going to be new teachers in the state in the coming years, that's something we're watching very closely. There's also a whole slew of other content areas in the social sciences that you could potentially teach, including psychology or anthropology. So there's a lot of knowledge that you need to have, and our preparation programs are meant to help you have a broad swath of that information so that you can be well prepared for what you need to learn to teach it.
All right, so as far as the CSET waiver, which is a really terrific thing we have in the program, and this is what makes it, so if you're not familiar with the CSET, it's the subject matter competency test that the state of California requires for teachers. So we are lucky that we have this waiver in place because the CSET for history social science is actually one of the more difficult CSETs in terms of the pass rate. And it's because you're basically held accountable for multiple choice questions ranging from the dawn of humanity up until recent history. So it's a lot to try to prepare for, in addition to content on geography and economics, because again, those are other social sciences that the state will expect you to be prepared to teach once you graduate with your teaching credential and your degree. So to get the CSET waiver, we have some of the base requirements outlined here. And that includes, you have to get C's or better in all of your pre-credential classes. And you have to have an overall 2.85 GPA. You also have to take History 5700, which is a credit, no credit class. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. To get into that class, you do have to have departmental and instructor consent. And so you need to be like close to graduation within a year or sooner to get into 5700. And so that class is teaching history in the field. And really one of the big things as noted here in the PowerPoint is this is when you kind of make that transition, start to make that transition from student to teacher perspectives, where you start really thinking about what it's like to be a teacher, the challenges, the exciting things about it, how to create lessons, the methodologies and ideas behind pedagogy, all those types of things is what we engage in that field. And it's kind of a way to bridge into the credential program while also finishing up the CSET waiver requirement.
And one thing I wanted to clarify that we had questions about the last time we did this info session Many students thought that you have to have all of your coursework pretty much complete by the time you take 5,700, but you don't. You just need to be really close to completing it. So if you have like 15 to 18 units left, that's about the sweet spot. Like maybe that's where you'd like to take it. Anything more than that, if you're going to be moving into another 2 semesters here, it's just a little bit too far out because Dr. Karp and I have to check your grades and your GPA to make sure that you're going to meet these qualifications by the time you graduate. So if for some reason something happens during your last term and you fail a class, then you don't get credit in History 5700 if it's one of the courses that you need to earn credit in. Also, while C's are required, C minuses don't count. So if you have C minuses in any of the classes that we're going to talk about on the next few slides, you want to consider retaking those classes so that you can replace the grades and qualify for the CSET waiver. Anything else, Dr. Karp?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, because we'll get to those classes, like you said, in just a sec.
So this is the list of the specific courses that you need to take. We're going to go through a few different slides, but here you have to take this list of classes, which are your basic world history classes. And by being in the pre-credential track, the pre-credential concentration, you are required to take these classes anyway. But just so you know ahead of time, this is what you need. So 1400, 1440, and then your US history classes, history 2000 and 2010. Your pro seminars in history and your research seminar in history, usually those are the classes that end up coinciding with when students are taking 5700. So just keep that in mind as you're planning your workload, that last semester is going to have some busy courses in it. History 3050 and 3060. So you'll need both of the European history classes that span, I guess, all of European history. California history, because that's an important part of the curriculum if you're going to be teaching in California. And then, as I mentioned previously, there aren't just history classes that you're responsible for teaching as you move into secondary levels. You can teach geography, so you need to have the Introduction to Human Geography class. And in 12th grade, you will teach either government or economics. Usually it's combined into 1 year where you have 1 semester economics, 1 semester of government. And typically these are the classes that students seem to have the most difficult time with. So if you have your economics classes and don't have grades of C or better in them, consider planning to retake them maybe over winter or spring. Those are great times to take these big classes that you need a little bit of extra time in.
And then as a secondary part here, as far as the course list goes, you also have to get C's or better. And there's a couple different sections you've probably seen if you're looked at your PAWS report, and if you're new to CSUSB and you haven't yet, there's areas where you get to pick a class. So over here on the left, you have to pick 1 class from this list. And these are just different US history classes, again, that apply for counting toward that waiver, which is why you have to have that C. So you just pick one of those. And then the same thing with the courses on the right-hand side, which is its own separate other category. So just be aware of that as well with your performance in these courses, that within the pre-credential concentration to get the CSET waiver, you also have to get that C or above in these 2 sections from these classes that you pick.
And the first one meets the way that the CSET is structured and the way that the waiver is structured is that you have to meet what they call like domain competencies in these different sections. So these help students meet the competencies that they need in US history, particularly in like the constitutional development of the United States for the one on the left, and then the one on the right is a diversity requirement. So how can we look at the experiences of different groups of people in US history? So you may have a US history class in the 3500s, but you really need one that also has that diversity requirement for the CSET. And then we have content area classes to show that more in-depth exploration of a variety of content areas. So you'll see that there are different categories and you need to take classes in 5 of those categories. You're required to do that as a part of your enrollment here, so just make sure you're on track. For the European history one, that's pretty much met by the 3060 or 3050 because you have that requirement. United States history can count double for one of the classes from the last slide. So one of these can count for your US history requirement. So that's 2 out of those 3 that are met there. And then you would need 2 out of those 5 are met there. So then you would need just 3 more. So you would need to take classes in ancient African, Asian, Middle Eastern, or Latin American history. So just planning those out thoughtfully so that you can check those boxes over the next few years is really important.
I just add on to that as well for the 3050 and 3060, the like software for your transcripts usually always does that one correctly where it counts where you need it to. For the US history though, keep an eye on where it gets plugged in on your pause report, because sometimes you need to meet with an academic advisor or professional advisor to move some of the US history courses around when you are taking them to make sure that they count where you want them to, because sometimes I've had students in the past where the US history course just gets like plugged in somewhere, like in the content area, but it doesn't show up down below in one of the sort of selection classes that we just went over. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully, you know, when you have your regular meetings with your academic advisor, they should catch it, but just as an FYI that I've seen it happen many times with students with the US history requirements.
Does anyone have any questions right now while we've gone over a lot of stuff? Yeah, Nathan?
Yes. Reason my question is that I know you guys said that depending on like which classes kind of like fill in certain gaps, which is because like I know me specifically, I was in contact with my both academic and also my academic advisors and say that based upon like certain classes I did last semester, for example, it would count to, for example, I took like a US history class last semester and I was told there was a possibility I could switch it for Middle Eastern, I think it was, because it kind of suits that area. But I was wondering if that's basically a case by case basis, because I was told that does happen sometimes, but
We'd have to look at what that class was specifically because those are 2 separate content areas. So it might be meeting a different requirement outside of what we're specifically talking about here. So Nathan, let's talk separately about it and see what that was going on there.
all right, thank you.
Sierra?
Hi, my course says that I have to take 3050 and 3060. You can't choose either one, is that correct?
Right. Yeah, you need both of those.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so these different pieces of the CSET are meant to help you move into a single subject credentialing program. So we're just kind of taking one of the really major hurdles out of the way so that you can transition pretty cleanly from our program into the credential program here at CSUSB or somewhere else if that's your plan. There are several single subject info sessions that our College of Education runs many times a month that you can attend and that'll go through the different admission requirements. You actually have to attend those info sessions as a part of your application. But I have this pulled up, so I just want to show you here's their website. If you go to the single subject teaching credentialing requirements, it'll tell you all of the things that you need that are non-course related. You will need to meet a basic skills requirement, but as of this summer, your bachelor's degree will count towards meeting a basic skills requirement. So you won't need to take the CBEST test as long as you'll have your bachelor's degree posted by the time you're admitted into the credential program. So for most of you, that's part of what you need for a credential program anyway. So it's removing a step there. You also need to demonstrate subject matter competency, which is the CSET waiver that we've been talking about. If you're a pre-credential student and you have a GPA that doesn't qualify you for the CSET waiver, or if you have classes with grades lower than the threshold and you can't retake them, there are some other options that we can talk about for assessing your coursework and then combining that with different versions, different pieces of the subtests for the CSET so that you can still meet that subject matter competency. Let's see. The other things that you need are sorry, I'm working on 2 screens right here. The other things that you need are a live scan, which is a background check, and a TB test. And those are 2 things that take some time. So if you're planning to apply for a credential program, understand when the due date is and try to get things done at least a month ahead of time. The live scan can sometimes take 2 weeks. And the TB test takes a handful of days just for the reaction to happen if you have the under the skin bubble. Dr. Mark Rowan is the social science lead over in the College of Education. So he's an excellent person to go to with any questions you might have about what to expect. There's several different pathways that you can choose. So there's one that is a 1-year really fast program where in 2 semesters you take all of your coursework and complete student teaching. I've heard mixed things, that it's very, very hard and time consuming. I've heard other students say that it's doable, but it does get difficult at the end as they're finishing their TPAs and working unpaid as a student teacher in the classroom. To spread that out, there is a 3-semester option, which is Path B. So you can take your coursework, do your observations, and then by the very last term, do your student teaching, and it kind of spreads out that workload more. So you're not taking coursework and doing student teaching at the same time. There's an internship pathway too, but that is much more rare and only in areas where there's a significant need for teachers. And in social science, that's not super common, but in places like Palm Desert, I have a student out there who's on the internship track now. And I know that I've had some students up in the high desert who've also gotten internships. So it's not impossible. And for internships, you essentially are taking your coursework and the full-time teacher of record at a school. So you're working at the same time. There's a third option that is kind of outside of all of those, and that's seniors to teaching, which is fantastic. If you have some extra space in your schedule for the last semester or 2 that you're here at CSUSB as an undergrad, you can take, I think it's up to 3 classes that apply towards your teaching credential while you're doing your undergrad coursework. So it's a phenomenal option. I've had several students do it. And it helps you chip away at some of those classes that might make Pathway A difficult. By the end of this, you could do Pathway A and finish ahead of time if you needed, because you'd already have 3 classes done if you took the full extent. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Dr. Karp?
Just one thing that occurred to me tied to the live scan, just as a heads up for everybody, is they want to, just like Dr. Lorimer says, you want to get the live scan done early. But then another part of that sometimes is confusing to people too, is that you have to make a educator login on the CTC website, which is the California Teacher Credentialing page, because that's where you get a live scan so that you can get a certificate of clearance, which is basically just like that the state has said you're approved to be in a K-12 classroom. So just know that's part of that step with the live scan, but they will go over all of that in more detail when you go to one of those admissions events that you have to do. But I just wanted you all to have that heads up, because that sometimes is just a little confusing for folks, and we're always happy to help with that if need be. And yeah, just add on to the seniors to teach too. One thing as well that sometimes I forgot to mention when we first started talking about History 5700 is that since it is a class for getting the CSET waiver, it's not actually tied to your degree requirements, even as a pre-credential student. So sometimes people end up where, you know, they've taken even like History 5850, you've done your capstone classes, and maybe you just have like one other course, and 5700, that's really awesome opportunity to try to get the seniors to teach. So again, just keep your eye on that with your academic advisor on how you might divide up those last classes you have your last academic year, your last semester.
Any questions on these requirements? All right. This is the admissions page for the single subject. Here you can find their single subject information sessions link, so you can scroll through the different options there. Again, it has the list of all of the things that you need to do. For the recommendations that it asks for, you're going to need 2 recommendations from different professors or people that you've worked with who have an experience like seeing you work with other people, be a leader, all those different kinds of things. I have a list of the questions and I'll send it out so you can give your professors a sense of what's going to be asked of them on this recommendation form. Because sometimes it's not things that we actively observe in the classroom, and we have to be kind of creative in our answers towards, you know, how we, if our students have a high standard of education, or if they, you know, participate well in the community. There's these kind of broad questions that's sometimes difficult for us to assess. So you can help your professors or other people that you ask for recommendations by providing them with some background about yourself that gives insight into who you are outside of the classroom, and some experiences that you may have that show what kind of teacher you might be. All right, so as I mentioned before, the ideal option for you, especially within our program, is to just complete the social science subject matter competency equivalency preparation program that we have in the history department, which our pre-credential track sets you up for, and then you just check it off by passing History 5700. If for some reason you can't meet all of those requirements, there's other options. So the second level of option is to request a coursework evaluation via the College of Education. And through a coursework evaluation, you submit your transcripts, or we can look at your pause report, and we take all of the classes that you've taken and apply it to the list of domains that we have to meet according to the CTC for the CSET. And then for the classes that don't meet those domains, you would take that CSET subtest. So the CSET has 3 different subtests. Primarily what I've been finding so far as I've done some of these evaluations is that it's usually that subtest number 3 that students will need to take, because that's where that economics piece comes in. So I've also heard that that's one of the hardest pieces of the test, because it's just includes a lot of stuff. So if you can retake an economics class, if that's where you're struggling, think about that. Otherwise, if you can't take that combination of coursework and subtests, you can just take the entire CSET exam. I think they're still about $100 a test, and you pass each piece individually. So if you pass 2 of the tests, but not 1, then you only have to retake that 1 test. And this is why our preparation program is the ideal, because it gets really confusing and convoluted and just complex having to do it the other ways. Dr. Karp, anything additional for you to add?
I guess just one other thing, if you're doing a needing to go the CSET route, you do have the option as well, just so you're aware, to take like 1 subtest at a time or all 3 at once, or I think you can even just do 2 at a time. So if you end up needing to do the CSET, kind of plan ahead, I guess, about what makes the most sense for you with how you study and how you want to take the test. Some people like to give it a go and do the whole test for a big 6-hour long chunk. And some people like to just go do 1 at a time and focus on that. So there's kind of different strategies, but again, hopefully, since you're all here, and you're planning ahead, that you can just get our CSET waiver so you don't have to deal with all that, because it is pretty tough. I see we have a question in the chat, taking Econ 2201, is that the hard one or the second one? Luis, I think it probably depends on a lot of factors on you know, what things you enjoy or not, possibly the instructor too. That's micro, I believe, right? Or is that macro, Michelle? 2200.
I think it's micro.
Micro. It's micro, okay.
I think macro is the one I've seen students struggle more with.
Yeah, I think so too. On the whole, it seems like that's the harder one, perhaps.
Yeah, but I fully agree. I think it's dependent on the instructor who, you know, when you're taking it, the like modality, is it fully online, asynchronous? Are you in the classroom and able to work through problems? You know, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I think generally the students that I've had who had problems with it, it was 2202.
Likewise.
But, you know, that's not an indication of how you all might do on it. You may fly through it perfectly fine. We have plenty of students who meet the standards for our CSET waiver, you know, without a hitch. If you have old classes from your community college days that are sitting on your transcripts that are pulling down your GPA, or if you have classes from an earlier time at CSUSB that are pulling down your GPA, highly consider retaking those so you can boost your GPA and apply to have those grades replaced on your pause report, so that way it shows a higher GPA for you. I do typically have some students who are always sitting at the cusp, like around 2.7. And if you could wipe off some of those old grades by retaking those classes, that would really be ideal. All right. We don't really have much more to go over here. I know actually, just quickly, I have had some students in the past ask me about taking a dual MA credential program that some universities offer. And I want to let you know that CSUs offer a pathway to apply your credential level coursework to a master's degree, but you don't earn it at the same time when taking it through the CSU. In part, that's intentional so that when you go on the job market, you aren't an expensive hire, because in teaching at most districts, it's a sliding scale based on your level of education and your years teaching. So the more you've been teaching and the higher education you have, the more you get paid. So if you're coming on the job market as a brand new teacher and you don't have you don't have any experience other than student teaching, and it would be more expensive to hire you than someone else, in some districts, they will take the person who doesn't have the master's degree that's less expensive. That's not true across the board. You know, there's lots of variability in there, but the CSU program allows you to take your units from your credential program and then apply it into a master's program later. It's just not a dual program where you get it all at one time. And if you're interested in that, I think there's information on the College of Education's website also. So that would be a master's in education. It wouldn't be in your content area of history. So that's something to consider also. If you have any questions moving forward, I'm happy to receive your emails. You can email Dr. KARP as well. I'm in my office Tuesdays and Thursdays at the noon hour. And Dr. KARP, I don't know your availability.
So if you're at a PDC, my office hours are on Monday, Wednesdays from 2:30 to 3:30, and of course available by appointment. I also see we do have a couple of questions in the chat. I think Nathan had his hand up as well. So I see Hannah asked, does 5700 have any observation hours that need to be completed? No, it does not. So you'll start doing your observation hours your first semester in the credential program. And they'll help you get set up at a school site to get that going. And I see Jasmine asked, will the job market be better in the area in the coming years? We can certainly hope so. One thing to be totally frank with all of you about is that history social science is one of the, if not the most competitive field to try to get a teaching position at the K-12 level. And so that's something to note going in, like even if things were to improve, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that they do, there's just less jobs to go around in the field. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. One is that lots of people like to teach history, social science because it's awesome, but other things have to do as well with like requirements and course caps, the K-12 level and things like that affect like how many teachers they hire versus student ratio in classrooms and things like that as well. I will say that if it's possible for you to have some geographic mobility, that will help when you're initially on the job market. Sometimes you just have to get your foot in the door somewhere. But yeah, it's just to be totally upfront with you all that is a reality of the job market. But it can happen. I mean, I've had students that have recently graduated who, are working in even one student is working at his own home high school right now. So it can happen, but it's rarer, just so you're all aware. We're also happy, Dr. LORIMER and I, to chat with you about that type of stuff, more in depth in office hours, what the job market looks like. Also other options about getting a secondary credential in English language arts or something like that. Sometimes people do, again, just to get your foot in the door if you don't have that geographical mobility. But that'd be a whole nother kind of conversation, but we'd be happy to have it.
Yeah, you can also consider taking a minor in ethnic studies or other things that will make you stand out as a candidate. I have some students right now who are doing Spanish language endorsements as they're planning for their future in their credential program. So there are things that you can do that will set you above. If you played any sports and are willing to coach, that's something that's usually helpful. If there are other extracurriculars that might set you apart, definitely highlight that because those things go really far. One of our students who finished the credential program last year is now teaching out in Colton. And I think her experience in track and field was really beneficial to her success on the job market. But we have plenty of other students who find work in regional schools. So don't take this as like a down moment. It's just find ways to sell yourself. It's a job market still.
Sure. Nathan, you got your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to mention something. So originally when I first applied to CSBCU during my first semester exactly, I not only declared I was a history major, but I guess I was kind of led in a very opposite a bad path, so to speak, where I was told by one of the people within the department that I was supposed to be guided by people within the history department, but I wasn't. And then when I started my first semester, I wasn't really geared on this path, which I am right now, which I had to fix later until I was made aware I wasn't. But then also I wanted to ask, so like for example, if in my remaining classes I have to do like from Latin American ancient history, will I be connected to other professors, like particularly I want to teach in US history? would I be able to be guided by people within that expertise to help me formulate what kind of like ideal like path of history I want to teach? Because I've been like struggling trying to find like those connections, but then I just been trying to like, playing catch up, so to speak. So just want to share that.
Thanks for letting us know, Nathan. Yeah, it's sometimes hard. And that's one of the reasons why we do these info sessions now. To be honest, I've been in this position as a full-time professor for a year now. So if you were here before that, it just wasn't, that wasn't something that I was doing as a part of like coordinating the pre-credential program before that. So that might be part of the reason that it slipped through. Also, the courses that you take here are meant to prepare you for a wide variety of classes that you may teach at the secondary level. When you apply for jobs, it's usually as a social studies or social science teacher, and you can't really apply for the specific, like I'm going to teach US history in 8th grade. You get hired by the school or by the district for the school that they have an opening at, and you fill the openings that they need. So while the classes that you take that have an interest in right now, like Middle Eastern history, for example, or US history, will prepare you to eventually teach what you want to teach. It's really helpful for you to approach the job market with an open mind that you can teach anything in history, social science, because ideally that's what people are looking for, that you're flexible in what you can teach. But you can sell yourself very well by saying you've completed a subject matter preparation program and you've taken a wide variety of classes and you've met this high bar of your GPA and grade requirement. And so you're well prepared to teach all of these classes. And ideally you would like to teach, say, US history, but you can teach anything else if necessary.
Okay, thanks for that. I just wanted to say like I have like an idea of what I want to teach, but like I know what you mean, like you want to have like a lot of like tools and tool sets, so to speak, and should teach like multiple varieties about US or maybe world history a little bit. I understand. I just wanted to say that I've been kind of like struggling, like I said, to make those connections because I've been, like I said, I was kind of led to think that I was on the path when I first started here, but I wasn't. But then I raised it and I was kind of like given the impression that for some reason I was supposed to be approached people about history department that would help me fine tune my plan per se. But then, like I said, I didn't know until I figured out there was like an error. But I just appreciate you guys' clarifications. Thank you.
Yeah, let's talk later about this too, Nathan, so we can figure something out.
Yeah, definitely for everybody too. If you are kind of like wondering what's the next step, or if you're, through the admissions process, you end up on like the general concentration, so the pre-credential, because that happens sometimes. Like, please know that anybody in the history department, regardless of what class they have or what specialty they have, like any of us are always happy to help you get on the right track and help you sort it out. So don't ever hesitate to shoot an email to one of us or just ask one of your professors after class. Like I will, I think be able to speak for the whole department. Any of us would be happy to help you with any of that stuff. Hey, we have maybe time for one or two more questions. Hannah asks, will it help? Does the pre-credential program benefit students who will go to an out-of-state credential program? I think it definitely helps in terms of preparation of the coursework, and the expertise that you leave here with your bachelor's degree is geared for California. The California credential itself is accepted in most states, but if you were to finish a program there, I mean, I definitely think the coursework and the things you do here would help prepare you for that. As far as like the CSET waiver, that probably is not going to be something that's transferable because California has its own. The CSET is just for California in general. Other states use something I think called the praxis. It varies. So that would not be directly transferable, but the preparation and your knowledge and all that stuff certainly would be. And then Luisa asked, would we be able to have credits count toward an English credential? No. But if you do get your initial credential in history, social science, you can get a secondary credential by passing the CSET in that discipline and or by doing further coursework in that discipline. So once you get to that point, you can pursue that. And again, Dr. Lorimer and I'd be happy to chat with you in more detail about what that process looks like, because it's a little bit convoluted, like the whole process is for getting one credential, but we're definitely here to help with that if that's something you're interested in knowing more about or potentially pursuing. All right. Well, if there are no further questions, just wanted to say thank you all for attending today. And a big thanks to Dr. Lorimer. She did the vast majority of the work getting the PowerPoint and everything all set up. She's awesome as our main coordinator for our credential program, our pre-credential program. So thank you, Dr. Lorimer. And thank you guys all. And please know, like, never hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to help. That's why we're here. And yeah, just thanks again. Hope you all have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you for the information. Goodbye.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.